Part 8. Kane and Lambert activated their own light bars. Travelling in a line, they started to explore the vast room. Fragments of some shattered grey material lay scattered about. Much of it was buried beneath the tiny dust dunes and finely ground pumice that had invaded the ship. Kane ignored the stuff. They were hunting for something intact. Dallas's light fell unexpectedly on a shape that was not part of the wall or floor. Moving closer, he used the light to trace its outlines. It appeared to be a smallish urn or vase, tan in colour, glossy in aspect. Moving closer, he tilted his head over the jagged, broken top, shone the light inside. Empty. Disappointed, he walked away, wondering that something seemingly so fragile had remained relatively undisturbed, while other, more durable substances had appeared withered and cracked. Though for all he knew, the composition of the urn might test the melting ability of his pistol. He was almost ready to return to the shaft in the floor when his light fell on something complex and boldly mechanical. Within the semi-organic confines of the alien ship, its reassuringly functional appearance was a great relief, though the design itself was utterly unfamiliar.
"Over here!" "Something wrong?"
That was Kane.
"Not a thing, but I found a mechanism."
Lambert and Kane rushed to join him, their boots raising little puffs of animated dust. They added their own lights to Dallas's. All seemed quiet and dead, though Dallas had the impression of patient power functioning smoothly somewhere behind those strangely contoured panels. And evidence of mechanical life was provided by the sight of a single metal bar moving steadily back and forth on its grooved track, though it made, according to suit sensors, not a sound. Looks like it's still functioning. Wonder how long it's been running like this. Kane examined the device, fascinated. Wonder what it does. I can tell you that. They turned to Lambert. She confirmed what Dallas had already guessed. She was holding her finder, the same instrument that had led them here from the Nostromo. It's the transmitter. Automatic distress call, just like we imagined it might be. It looks clean enough to be brand new, though it's likely been putting out that signal for years. She shrugged. Maybe decades, or longer. Dallas ran a small instrument over the surface of the alien device. Electrostatic repulsion. That explains the absence of dust. Too bad. There isn't much wind in here, and the depth of the dust might give us a clue about how long the machine's been set up. It looks portable. He turned the scanner off, slipped it back into his waist holster. Anyone else find anything? They both shook their heads. Just ribbed walls and dust. Kane sounded discouraged. No indication of another opening leading to a different part of the ship. No other floor gaps. Again, the double negative responses. That leaves us with the first shaft, or trying to bore a hole through the nearest wall. We'll try the first before we go slicing things up. He noticed Kane's expression. Giving up? Not yet. I will if we run through every centimetre of this big grey bastard and don't find anything beside blank walls and sealed machines. That wouldn't bother me a bit, said Lambert with feeling. They retraced their steps, carefully positioned themselves close to the lip of the flush, circular opening in the deck. Dallas knelt, moving slowly in the suit, and felt as best he could of the shaft's rim. Can't tell much with these damn gloves on, but it feels regular. The shaft must be a normal part of the ship. I thought it might have been caused by an explosion. That is a distress call we're picking up." Lambert studied the hole. "A shaped charge could make a smooth hole like that." "You'll do anything to make a guy feel good, won't you?" Dallas felt disappointed. "But I still think it's a normal part of the ship. The sides are too regular, even for a shaped charge, no matter how powerful." "Just giving my opinion." "Either way, it's look down below, blow a hole in the wall, or go back outside and hunt for another entrance." He looked across the shaft at Kane. "This is your big chance." The exec looked indifferent. "If you wish. Suits me. If I'm feeling generous, I'll even tell you about the diamonds." "What diamonds?" "The ones I'm going to find spilling out of old alien crates down there." He gestured at the blackness. Lambert helped him secure the chest climbing unit, made certain the harness was firmly affixed to his shoulders and back. He touched the cheek stud, was rewarded by a faint beep over his helmet speaker. A green light winked on, then off, on the front of the unit. "We've got power over here. I'm all set." He eyed Dallas. "You ready yet?" "Another minute." The captain had assembled a metal tripod from short lengths of metal. The resulting construction looked flimsy, too thin to support a man's weight. In actuality, it could hold the three of them without so much as bending. When it was locked, Dallas moved it so that its apex was positioned over the center of the shaft. Braces secured the three legs to the deck. A small winch and spool arrangement attached to the apex held thin cable. Dallas manually unwound a meter or two of the gleaming lifeline, handed the end to Kane. The exec affixed the cable to the loop on his chest unit, double-locked it tight, and had Lambert check by pulling on it with all her weight. It held easily. "Don't unhook yourself from the cable under any circumstances," Dallas said sternly. "Even if you see piles of diamonds sparkling just out of your reach." He checked the cable unit for himself. Kane was a good officer. The gravity here was less than on Earth, but still more than adequate to make a mess of Kane if he fell. They had no idea how deep into the bowels of the ship the shaft went. Or the shaft might be a mining shaft, extending below the hull and into the ground. That thought led to another, which made Dallas grin to himself. Maybe Kane would find his diamonds after all. "Be out in less than 10 minutes. He spoke in his best no-nonsense tone. "Read me?" "Aye, aye." Kane carefully sat down, swung his legs over the edge. Grasping the cable with both hands, he pushed off, hung by the cable in the middle of the opening. His lower body was cloaked in black air. "If you're not out in 10 minutes, I'll pull you out with the override," Dallas warned him. "Relax. I'll be a good boy. Besides, I can take care of myself." He'd stopped swinging from side to side, now hung motionless in the gap. "Do that. Keep us informed as you descend." "Check." Kane activated the climbing unit. The cable unwound smoothly, lowering him into the shaft. He thrust out with his legs, contacted the smooth sides. Leaning back and bracing his feet against the vertical wall, he was able to walk downward. Holding himself motionless, he switched on his light bar, pointed it down. It showed him 10 meters of dull-colored metal before dissolving into nothingness. "Hotter in here," he reported, after a cursory inspection of his suit's sensory equipment. "Must be warm air rising from below. Could be part of the engine complex, if that's still functioning. We know something supplying power to that transmitter." Kicking away from the wall and playing out cable, he started down in earnest. After several minutes of rappelling his way down the shaft, he stopped to catch his breath. It was warmer, and growing more so the farther he dropped. The sudden change put a burden on his suit's cooling system, and he began to sweat, though the helmet's own unit kept his faceplate clear. His breathing sounded loud to him within the helmet, and he worried because he knew Dallas and Lambert could hear. He didn't want to be called back up. Leaning back, he glanced upward and saw the mouth of the shaft, a round circle of light set in a black frame. A dark blot appeared, obscured one round edge. Distant light glinted off something smooth and reflective. "You okay down there?" "Okay. Hot, though. I can still see you. Haven't hit bottom yet." He sucked in a deep draft of air. Then another, hyperventilating. The tank regulator whined in protest. "This is real work. Can't talk anymore now." Bending his knees, he kicked away from the wall again, let out more cable. By now, he'd gained some confidence with regard to his surroundings. The shaft continued steadily downward. So far, it had displayed no inclination to narrow or change direction. Widening, he wasn't as concerned about. He kicked off harder the next time, began taking longer and longer hops, falling steadily faster in the darkness. His light bar continued to shine downward, continued to reveal nothing but the same monotonous, unvarying night beneath him. Out of breath again, he paused in his descent to run a check of his suit instrumentation. "Interesting," he said into his pickup. "I'm below ground level." "Read you," replied Dallas. Thinking of mine shafts, he asked, "Any change in your surroundings? Still the same stuff walling the shaft?" "As far as I can see. How am I doing online?" A brief pause while Dallas checked the cable remaining on the spool. "Fine. Got over 50 meters left. If the shaft runs deeper than that, we'll have to call this off until we can bring in bigger stuff from the ship. I wouldn't think it'd go down that far, though." "What makes you think so?" Dallas sounded thoughtful. "Would make the ship all out of proportion." "Proportion to what? And to whose idea of proportion?" Dallas did not have a reply for that. Ripley would have given up on the search if she'd had anything better to do. She did not. Playing at the ECIU board was better than wandering around an empty ship or staring at the vacant seats surrounding her. Unexpectedly, a realignment of priorities in her querying jogged something within the ship's Brobdingnagian store of information. The resultant readout appeared on the screen so abruptly she almost erased it and continued with the next series before she realized she actually had received a sensible response. The trouble with computers, she thought, was that they had no intuitive senses, only deductive ones. You had to ask the right question. She studied the readout avidly, frowned, punched for elaboration. Sometimes Mother could be unintentionally evasive. You had to know how to weed out the confusing subtleties. This time, however, the readout was clear enough, left no room for misunderstanding. She wished fervently that it had. She jabbed at the intercom. A voice answered promptly. "Science Blister. What is it, Ripley?" "This is urgent, Ash." She spoke in short, anxious gasps. "I finally got something out of the bank via ECIU. It might have just come through, I don't know. That's not what matters." "Congratulations." "Never mind that," she snapped worriedly. "Mother has apparently deciphered part of the alien transmission. She's not positive about this, but from what I read, I'm afraid that transmission may not be an SOS." That quieted Ash, but only for an instant. When he replied, his voice was as controlled as ever, despite the import of Ripley's announcement. She marveled at his self-control. "If it's not a distress call, then what is it?" he asked quietly. "And why the nervous tone? You are nervous, aren't you?" "You bet your ass I'm nervous. Worse than that, if Mother's correct. Like I said, she's not positive, but she thinks the signal may be a warning." "What kind of warning?" "What difference does it make, what kind of warning?" "There is no reason to shout." Ripley took a couple of short breaths, counted to 5. "We have to get through to them. They've got to know about this right away." "I agree," said Ash readily. "But it's no use. Once they went inside the alien ship, we lost them completely. I've had no contact with them for some time now. The combination of their proximity to the alien transmitter, coupled with the peculiar composition of the vessel's hull, has defeated every attempt of mine at re-establishing communication. And believe me, I've tried." His next comment came off sounding like a challenge. "You can try to raise them yourself, if you like. I'll help in any way I can." "Look, I'm not questioning your competence, Ash. If you say we can't contact them, we can't contact them. But damn it, we've got to let them know." "What do you suggest?" She hesitated, then said firmly, "I'm going out after them. I'll tell them in person." "I don't think so." "Is that an order, Ash?" She knew that in an emergency situation of this kind, the science officer outranked her. "No, it's common sense. Can't you see that? Use your head, Ripley," he urged her. "I know you don't like me much, but try to view this rationally. We simply can't spare the personnel. With you and me, plus Parker and Brett, we've got minimum takeoff capability right now. 3 off, 4 on, that's the rules. That's why Dallas left us all on board. If you go running after them, for whatever reason, we're stuck here until someone comes back. If they don't come back, no one will know what's happened here." He paused, added, "Besides, we've no reason to assume anything. They're probably fine." "All right." She admitted it grudgingly. "I concede your point, but this is a special situation. I still think someone should go after them." She'd never heard Ash sigh, and he didn't do so now, but he gave her the impression of a man resigned to handling a Hobson's choice. "What's the point?" He said it evenly, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. "In the time it would take one of us to get there, they'll know if it's an operative warning. Am I wrong or am I right?" Ripley didn't reply, simply sat staring dully at Ash on the monitor. The science officer gazed steadily back at her. What she couldn't see was the diagram on his console monitor. She would have found it very interesting.